Welcome to Divine Downloads. I'm your host, Cassandra, and this is a show where we help you divinely design your life. And today's guest, I'm so excited for. She's a celebrity life coach and creative visionary, and she's teaching everyone all over the world how to have that celebrity it factor, magnetism energy. And whether you're trying to be a celebrity or an actress, you're a small business owner, you're even just climbing the ladder at your current job, having that magnetic energy is so powerful in our lives. So I can't wait to introduce you to Whitney.
Well, Whitney, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast because I don't know how I think like the gods of the Instagram algorithm or something, like you came up on my feed and I was like, who is this woman? Not only is she so magnetic, but she is talking about something that I feel like in some of my manifestation programs, I speak about it in like I call it quantum embodiment is like what but the way that you're speaking about it in a way more specific way, because mine's just like a more general, like manifest whatever kind of thing, um, around this topic that is, I just feel like so pertinent in our culture right now about whether it's like, the celebrity energy and being a self-made celebrity and how you coach, not just when I think celebrity, I automatically think like actor, actresses, but you also coaches and different like business owners and influencers. And we have just such a range of what celebrity is. So before we dive into that, one, thank you for being on the show. And two, what called you to this? Like, how did you like come upon this like just magnificent niche?
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. I'm just so honored to be here and be with a fellow new mama. So thank you. I had the craziest, like the best twists and turns of events to find what I do now. But essentially since I was little, I just knew that I was meant to be famous. And that's really the only way I can describe it is I just pictured myself on the red carpets, doing press circuits, like interviewing, inspiring people. And I didn't know, at the time, I'm a millennial, so it's not like I grew up with the internet in the way that it is now. And so there weren't like influencers or anything like that. And so I just assumed, okay, then become an actress, right? And so I studied, I have a great singing voice and I did plays in theater in high school. So I went on to study musical theater and I kind of pursued that path. And I was in a very competitive program. And graduated with an agent. And I knew like once I graduated, like I have even like I can watch back now. I have video evidence that I had talent. I have talent, right? And yet it was just like not hitting. Like I was not booking things that I knew. I was like, there still is this vision in my mind's eye of what I'm supposed to be doing. And it just wasn't quite landing and wasn't quite connecting. And about it was I remember it was the day after I celebrated 100 auditions in New York, so 100 no's. I found out that my dad was terminally ill with leukemia and he had a very short prognosis. And so I moved home with him and took care of him until he passed away. And that I'm so grateful that I did, but it sent me on a healing journey as a young, I was 22 or 23, I guess, when my dad died. And I was so isolated. I didn't have any friends who had lost a parent. Friends hadn't even lost anyone. Like no one knew how to approach a young person with grief. And so I had to, find the resources that I could. And I tried therapy. It wasn't quite a fit, but I found a life coach and she just changed my world in terms of my healing. But I really also found that, oh, when I heal from these things, then my work gets better. Then I start booking work. Then I start getting auditions. Then I land a better agent. Then I start getting the callbacks. And so I I continued pursuing it and I just became obsessed with this personal development world. And I was really just doing it hand in hand with acting. And in 2019, I just had the intuitive hit to get certified. So I became certified as a life coach, and the plan was to do that while I was building my acting career, and which was really taking off. I joined the unions. I booked a recurring role on HBO. I signed with top agency. I had a development deal. I was secured movie funding for my movie that I was going to act, direct, star in, and then the pandemic hit, right? And so right when entertainment completely shut down, then suddenly every creative needed a life coach, and so that was when my business really took off. And so that's, kind of the origin is this blend of the personal development world and then also working with celebrities, working alongside them as an actor and then as their coach. And then, my business really organically grew, originally just word of mouth. And it wasn't until I was coaching my first celebrity client that I realized, like, oh my God, celebrity is an identity. It's an embodiment. It's a persona that you can tap into, and it really is, it's your higher self. It's like, that's it. It's not this, and it's this magnetism. And when you can tap into that, then and you feel safe being seen by massive amounts of people, then that's when people gravitate towards you. And I just was able to see that that was the difference between the people who made it and the people who didn't. And so then I started teaching that, and it was the scariest thing ever, because I was like, okay, well, why don't I implement this myself, become a celebrity, and then I'll write a how-to on how I did it. And ultimately that was not in the cards for me. Is that it was like, no, bitch, you got to practice what you preach, and you have to step into that and share it as you go. And so it's really been a process of, like, because and a lot of my top clients have me sign NDAs. It's not like I can be like, oh, I made this person, or helped this
Yeah.
person or whatever. And so really my work and my life has to be the proof that what I do works. And so I've just really been implementing it myself for the last couple of years and sharing my journey. But yeah, it's so much fun. I love it. And I have the best clients ever.
That is so much fun. Oh my gosh. And so are you currently doing both? Are you acting as well on while you're doing this?
So right now like literally as of this week, I've kind of started to feel pulled back into the entertainment side, because I know that that's kind of where my next level growth is. So I shared this before we started recording, but I have a 2-year-old son now. Right after when my son was 1, my ex and I split. So I've been going through a divorce, and really I've had this quantum leap in my coaching business. So I haven't really had the space creatively that it's even felt fun until now. So I feel like now I'm starting to be like, okay, let's get back into it. But I did a commercial like at the end of last year with Post Malone, and I just was like, I'm kind of done doing the like commercials, doing like acting, even like just being on set doesn't really sound fun to me right now, but the writing and producing aspect does. So that's kind of the next thing for me, but it's still very much in beta. My first like meeting about it is literally tomorrow night.
I love it. I love it. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I resonate with so much of your story. First of all, I feel like um grief has also been something that has been like such a transformative. I think one of the gifts of grief, or I like to call it just having like a keen sense of mortality from a young age.
Yeah.
Um,
It's beautiful.
and it's like it's a gift, like my brother is still with us, but he got diagnosed with a very serious terminal illness when he was 23.
Sorry.
And so I was just a couple years older than him at the time. And it's like when you're that young, you don't even think about how
Yeah.
precious life is and how precious time is, and that we don't have all the time in the world. And I think it sets you on this path to say, like, what is really important and what do I want to do?
Yeah.
And I think it's so beautiful that it's kind of led you to this place that's kind of just like organically developed. Similar, that was exactly what happened with my business. It was just like I floated along. I just kept on following like what felt fun and what was next.
Yeah.
So let's dive into, because you hit on something that was one of the questions I wrote down. Was I talk a lot about magnetism when we're talking about manifestation, right? So listeners know as far as that goes. How would you differentiate like a general magnetism when you're like kind of manifesting anything, and the magnetism you talk about with celebrity energy, or the magnetism that celebrities have, rather?
Yeah, I love that question. So, and I mean, a lot of it is the same, right? But I think what kind of prompted this rabbit hole for me was I was like, for me, that like the manifesting and that, what you're talking about, I've always really attributed that to like spirituality, right? And it is, but then I'm like, okay, but then there's all these like terrible people in Hollywood that are still magnetic. So what's happening? What gives, right? And I realize it's like, well, fame. So I always like to say fame is just the resource of having people's attention and it carries no more morality, right? So there are plenty of good people that have it and there are also plenty of bad people and people in between and we're all messy, we're all good and we're all bad. And so for me though, as I've like studied it and gone further down the rabbit hole, it really comes down to how safe you feel being seen for who you authentically are. So the people who, well, let's just, and again, we're using broad stroke terms here, but like the people who are just authentically okay with being seen that they are a terrible, selfish person, we want to watch them, right? And the same thing is true. And what happens so often, and this is where like, and with this, this idea that I've, and my like my business, the self-made celebrity is that we've kind of had this Hollywood in the past that has been defined by gatekeepers, right? We have a lot of the time these like old men who are deciding which young girl is going to be the next celebrity or whatever. And now, thanks to the internet, anyone can create this resource of fame. Anyone can create the resource of having people's attention, and then you can leverage it into what you want. You can build a following and turn it into a coaching business or a book deal or a music career, whatever that is. But we have this opportunity now for really good people, really good hearted, evolved people who've done the work to step up and claim that in a way that we haven't had that before. And yet, the people who are the most evolved, the most willing to work on themselves are often the least likely to pursue fame because of the stereotype around it and also because we see that when like you're self-aware, oh, people are going to be upset with me if I say my truth, if I speak my truth. And there are real life implications to creating the resource of fame. There's people that are going to be upset in your personal life, whether it's by the things you say or just simply by you standing up and saying I am worthy of claiming this space. People will be triggered by that. And I think, what I always call like the good-hearted artists, creatives, and influencers, we're so aware we don't want to hurt anyone. And so that subconsciously blocks us from stepping in our power and being seen by the masses.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think during this time period, the like COVID era, so to speak, it was also like cancel culture era in a way that
100%.
like,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been like blogging, Instagramming or whatever for like eons at this point, and I've like never seen anything like it, to the level that we're seeing it now. So I feel like it really is. And I know even so many of my friends personally that already had large followings at this time were just like crippled by
Yeah.
like it felt like it was like the Salem witch hunts on some level again,
Right.
just like going after that.
Well, and I mean, it makes so much sense too. Like, even the other day, I made this post, and if I'm honest, I didn't even think that much of it when I recorded it. I basically was just saying, I was like, I'm calling BS on Tom Holland because he says he doesn't want to be famous. And I'm like, if you don't want to be famous, then go live under a rock. Like, then don't pursue, that's not the whole truth. Right. And the reason that I said this is I was like, because when people who are famous say I hate being famous, it makes the people who do want to be famous feel like there's something wrong with them, and it makes them think, oh, that person just got lucky, that person just like lucked into it, and so that again, my mission is to help more good-hearted people become famous. And so for me, I'm just like, let's not discourage people who have this desire to make an impact from doing that because they should be doing it, right? I have never had so many haters and so many trolls, which I didn't realize. Yeah, I went up against Spider-Man. Like I went against the Marvel universe. Like that was bold of me. That was brash. And also the like first line of the sentence was I said I'm calling bullshit on Tom Holland, which to be fair, like I should have given a caveat. I've actually my family are friends with him said that he's the nicest guy. Like I picked a fight with the wrong kid, right? And
Yeah.
like if I meet him, I'm going to apologize and he'll be like, I've never seen this post and I've never heard of you, right? But all of this to say, when I'm getting all of this hate and all this vitriol, it literally felt like there were people standing around me screaming at me. It feels like my physical safety is under attack. And we know that. We've seen that happen with cancel culture. And so but like our bodies are actually going, like my body actually went into a trauma response and just completely shut down because like our brains don't understand the difference between real and imagined threats, right? And so
Yeah.
what we think is a real threat versus actually being a real threat. And so the work that, I had to do on myself that I'm always helping clients with is, because when you're stepping out in that way, that's just going to happen. Right. And even it's interesting though. Last night I had a post blow up about talking about the trad wife culture because I was raised Mormon and I'm very against that anyway. And I had all this hate, but my body processes it in a different way, right? So there's just going to be different times that our bodies respond in different ways. And the work is going to be about processing through that and rebalancing your nervous system so that you can continue to show up. Because to your point, that's what gets into people's way. And I work with people all the time at the top of their game, people that I'm sure you've seen on your, algorithm or on the For You page or whatever, who are like, I can't handle this anymore. Like I cannot handle constantly being under attack. And they're about to throw their careers away. And so that's when I get to help them make it fun again and rebalance their nervous system.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you brought up the Tom Holland situation or whatnot, because, and I didn't specifically peg him, but one of the things, one of the things I find mysterious about the actor, actress, celebrity, or whatnot is that oftentimes there is that kind of like, it's more mysterious, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like when you think like if you're doing, let's say, what I would call the embodiment work, right? Where you're like, okay, if you want to be a famous celebrity, look up someone like who's someone that like is an expander for you, that like inspires you, that you feel like is a good whatnot. And let's say some dude is like Tom Holland is that man for me, right? I'm just
Mm-hmm.
gonna use examples. I don't follow any of this stuff, but I'm guessing I don't follow Tom Holland on Instagram or even know if he has an Instagram. But I know from like other like equalish celebrity guys, right? The Instagram would be vastly different than like a guy that actually wanted, he'll like Tom Holland, let's say hypothetically, or the type, right? The mysterious actor type will have a huge following, right? Because people just love him and they'll follow him. But
Yeah.
maybe he'll have like random photos of his cat or like a mug he
Yep.
liked, or you know what I mean? It'll be like super obscure, absolutely no value driven,
Yes.
right? Right.
Yes.
And just like these. So what do you
Yep.
make of that? Right? That someone that has that celebrity energy, but is like not needing to do, or is that just like a different strand of celebrity energy?
Yep. No, this is such a good question. So basically, what we have to look at is kind of just like the old Hollywood system versus the new Hollywood system. So essentially, in order to create this resource of fame, you have to be very magnetic, but you can like, so the old Hollywood way is that you leverage other people's audiences. So for example, Taylor Swift got her start by opening for Rascal Flatts. Okay. However, when she got that break, there was somewhere that she was in a room with someone who watched her and said, "Oh, she's got it. We can put her in front of, Flats, like audiences, and they will gravitate towards her." Right. So she had that magnetism. Working in acting, I've seen that behind the scenes too. So I was mentored by the head of casting at ABC. She just really liked my work. She kind of took me under her wing and she invited me to be a reader for these auditions for the final callbacks for television shows. And I would watch them pick. There was specifically a show. I don't feel like I don't know if I signed anything, but I don't feel like I should say, but it had a bunch of young actresses in it. And so all of them were getting their big break. Like none of them were well known. And so I was watching all of these people get their big break and watching the difference between the ones who got it and the ones who didn't. And the ones who got it knew how to be magnetic in the right moment, right? So then when they did that, and it was so interesting because I remember I was so mad, I have to say, because I would watch, there was this one girl, she came in and I was like, I love her. She's so cute. She's on time. She has her lines memorized. She has her sides. She's in character. She's dressed the part. And she did it. And they're like, she's great. And then we wait and we wait and we wait and we wait. And this other girl shows up like 45 minutes late. She is not dressed. She's not in character. She doesn't have the lines. They have to print them out for her. And then she opens her mouth and you cannot take your eyes off of her. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like it was so annoying. because I was just like, no, I want the girl who is earnest as hell to be the one who books it. And yet she wasn't, because she couldn't, she was faking it. She wasn't in her celebrity energy. She wasn't in that flow state. She was putting something on. She was putting on what they thought, what casting would want. Whereas this other woman, she just, I mean, girl, she was literally like 17, could just like put the walls down, and then she was magnetic to watch. And so the difference is with these like Hollywood kind of mysterious types, they have the same skill, but they also have leverage, meaning they have someone else's audience that they are getting in front of. So these girls, like when I think back to when I was 17, I didn't have that skill, but I also didn't have the introductions to be in a room at final auditions for an ABC primetime show, right? And so, it was their studio. So I think it was like a Showtime. I don't remember the network, but all of this to say, if you have those connections and you have that magnetism, then you get to be, then like, congratulations, you have won the lottery and you get to be one of those celebrities that leverages just needs to get in front of other people's audiences. If you are not, if you are like me and you are not a Nepo baby, then you have to build that for yourself. And the amazing thing is, though, is that then I've worked with so many clients also who got sucked into the Hollywood machine, and then they didn't actually have a voice and they didn't get to have the career that they actually wanted. So if you do choose, or you just by like default have to become a self-made celebrity and build an audience for yourself, you get to build it around who you authentically are. And the similarity is you still need to know how to be that magnetic, but you also have to be the one producing and putting your content out there. And when you have that celebrity energy, that's what is going to make people want to watch you. And then they fall in love with you. And they don't fall in love with you, the character or the actor. They fall in love with you. And once you have that, then you have built a resource for yourself. Fame, a following, that is leverage. That is a resource that you can then exchange for other things that you want. So whether that is, I think Emma Chamberlain is a great example. She's someone who, like, she built, her following doing Walmart hauls. That's who she authentically was. And now she's, modeling for every top designer in Paris. That's what she wanted to leverage it for. And she also has, Chamberlain coffee or whatever. So however you want to do it. And there are plenty of, musicians who made their way online or whatever, but it's really about building that resource for who you are. But unfortunately, being coy and being mysterious is just, that's like, if someone's trying to do that and you don't already have the leverage of being in front of someone else's audience, it's just not going to land, because you're not actually showing yourself. You're just hiding.
That makes so much sense. And I love what you said, like old Hollywood versus kind of like new fame or whatnot, and what we're living in. And I'm curious how you would coach, because I read that you work with both, actors and business owners or influencers, whatever you want, content creators, right? Is there a difference in how you would coach an actor to show up on social media versus how you would coach a influencer, small business owner, content creator to show up?
I mean, there are nuances in terms of like the type of content, right? Where there's like, if you're selling a product, then that's going to be a little bit different than like if it's your own product versus you're influencing versus you're just trying to make people fall in love with you so that then you get more auditions. But ultimately, the skill is always the same. And that is just being safe, being seen for who you authentically are. Because even like I was coaching an entrepreneur the other day, and she was just like, I hate selling. Like, selling feels like shit. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but a lot of coaches, it's like we learn how to overcome objections and we learn the psychology behind getting the sales and all of that.
Yep.
And I've done all of that. And like I do have that, but I'm just of the mind of like, or I just make so like I just get in front of so many more people that I just have a wider target, and then I don't have to overcome objections because there's just more people coming into my wheelhouse. And if I kind of joke. I mean, it is and isn't a joke, but the work of being able to tap into celebrity energy, it's making people fall in love with you really quickly. So it makes them want to either be you, date you, or be your best friend. And if you can do that really, really quickly, then people are going to trust you. It's kind of like this in terms of like an entrepreneur. I think we've kind of built out, like I used to live in New York City, and there was this framing gallery called Jack's Framing Gallery, and it was a ma and pa shop. And I went when I needed a frame, but then while I was there, I was talking to him about how COVID impacted his business and about his son and how his dad passed down the business and whatever. And so then it's not like I needed a frame every day, but anytime I walked by him, I would say hi. If my friends needed a frame, I would send them his way. I would like drop in with a coffee or whatever. So that's what we're creating online is if you know how to tap into this magnetism, whether you're an entrepreneur or an actor, whatever, you're making a parasocial relationship so that people feel like they know you and then they want to buy with you when they have that need, instead of just trying to like push your sales on someone when or if I'm not a believer in like push sales on when it's going to work for me. It's like, no, this is what I'm doing and they'll come when they're ready and there's an abundance of people. And so there's abundance of money. And yeah, it's also just like a really fun and freeing way to live as a business owner.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And I think it actually, now that just hearing you say that in the context of just talking about that girl who came to the audition, I feel like it's very similar where I always tell, people that when the more authentically you are you and talk about things the way that you talk about things and, how you navigate things and how you want to describe things or whatnot, then the more people, like when people listen to my podcast or my YouTube channel, even though like my Instagram is way larger than I guess, but it's a different level of intimacy, right? So people that listen to my podcast or my YouTube channel are almost like you're either 100% like they'll sign up for whatever it is or they're not, right?
Yes.
Because they like, oh, I know her. And then when people work with me, they're always like, all right, I felt like I knew you. Like it wasn't like a big risky thing because I felt like I knew what your personality was and you're exactly how I expected you to be.
Exactly. Exactly. And like something that's so interesting is because of my audience base, they're all actually where I live also, right? Like I live in Los Angeles. And so I'm just like, I have all these friends now. And like it really is like when I meet them in person, they know enough about me that and like I have only have had positive experiences. I know that can get, there's probably a tipping point where it gets a little bit out of hand or whatever, but it really is like they genuinely actually know you if you genuinely put yourself out there and share things. And it's always, I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this as well, where it's like whenever people are like, oh, like the one thing that I was almost too embarrassed to say, they're like, that's why I signed up. Right. Or like, that's what I connected about you. Or, oh my God, I didn't like, of course, like people will find out I'm a single mom and they're like, that's why I love you. I am too, or whatever it is. It's just these little parts that like we feel embarrassed or ashamed to share that are really what drive the connection.
Yeah, I've been astounded. I'll never forget like early on when I launched like one of my first like high ticket coaching programs or whatnot. And I was just doing Instagram stories, like sharing about what it was. And nothing like wasn't like consciously, trying to curate anything at the time, just chatting. And then the first girl that signed up, for this like, at the time, pretty high ticket thing, I was like, oh my God. I was like, just curious, like what made you realize that this was like a right fit for you? And I'm thinking like, it's going to be like, oh, this like copy or this, whatever, right? She's like, well, you did this Instagram story and you were just like, looking so cute and you had these like designer sunglasses on and you're talking about these really like kind of hippy dippy out there stuff and I was like, oh my God, she gets me.
She gets me. Yep.
She gets me, right? And I was like, how, but it's like the more that we're comfortable to be like, this is who I am in my like eclectic mix of
Yep.
that. And I think it's probably the same with that. I don't know why it keeps on doing that.
Give me a thumbs up.
But we'll take it. We'll take the thumbs up.
The universe agrees. And so does my dog, apparently. I'm sorry about him.
Okay. I feel like that's probably that it factor with that actress as well, right? Where she just brought a lot of her own authenticity to that role and wasn't trying to be anything but who she was.
Exactly. And I think that's what's like something you said kind of made me think, hold on, let me grab him real quick. Okay, sorry about that. So one thing that you said I really loved was that, you're speaking, you're on your stories, you're just in your sunglasses. You were able to see yourself enough and love those parts of yourself enough to be seen in that way. And so then when you start speaking, all of a sudden, like my favorite comment, and this is the best, honestly, one of the highlights of my career was the first time that a celebrity said, "It seems like I feel like you've been in my mind. Like you say the things that I've been are thinking about, but you articulate it in a way that I never have." And that was so like, and I was just like, oh, thank God I'm not an imposter, right? Like it was just like so freeing for me. But that's what happens is like when you are able to see your own self and love your own self and stop judging your own self and then just exist and just say those things, then other people are like, oh my God, I feel like you're in my head too. And that's, I mean, we even know just from, Brene Brown 101, it's like, it's the vulnerability that connects us to people and the imperfections. And when you're willing to just do that in the public arena, like, of course, that opens you up to hate and criticism. And we're so afraid of being seen in our vulnerable moments, but that's ultimately what makes people fall in love with us.
I love that. That's literally a layup into the next question that I was just thinking about
I
asking you.
love that.
I was like, that just boom. So where does the meeting, I feel like right now, and in my, without putting like, I guess, too much of my judgments on it, I feel like there's a lot of like kind of like patriarchal marketing culture that like is infused into the online business entrepreneur world, right? And I think one of the things that we're kind of pushed on is like value, 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 right?
Mm,
Like constantly show up and give value. And I think that's a little bit different. Like because I just like literally, you probably can tell this is like a topic that I love thinking about.
yeah.
It just fascinates me, like the energetics of it, because I think that there's something like when I think of celebrity energy, and feel free to correct me, but when I think about celebrity energy, there is this energy of I am enough just as I am.
Yeah.
And I am like, whatever, me. I'm trying to think of like, you see some of these like reality shows or whatever. It's like me eating a cantaloupe is entertaining or whatever. It's like this like most base level, right? Whereas I think in the online entrepreneur world, we can almost get into like a pattern of like, I am not worthy unless I am giving explicit value.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
100%. And I think to your point, that's such a patriarchal notion as well. Because, like, if we think about even like, and I don't want, like, gender is not binary, like, there's so
Yes.
many, whatever. And I think it's very masculine to approach it in like, go and build something and give it to other people. And like, feminine is like, let's nurture and let's connect. And we just don't see connection as valuable because of patriarchy and because there has not, until now, there has not been a price tag on it ever. Like, and influencer marketing specifically has changed the game for that. And I think that's personally why influencers get so much shit, is because they are like actually monetizing on an inherently female like value and something that is inherently like their God-given gift. Because I think about like, I name drop this one influencer all the time in hopes that one day she'll hear my name and we'll become friends. There's this influencer named JC Marie Smith. She has no idea who I am. And every time I am stressed and I am overwhelmed, I turn on her YouTube channel and I just listen to her talk about how she went to Pilates and she picked out a green juice and she's excited about her pregnancy. Like, and like for someone to say that that has not been value, that's just such bullshit. Like for me in my life this last year, like going through a divorce, becoming a single mom, to feel like there is someone that I can feel connected to is so inherently valuable. And so I think that that's something that gets lost on us often, because of the way society has been built, and also just influencing is new, but we just lose sight of the fact that simply by existing and showing up and being willing to be seen is inherently valuable for people, and people feel connection, and feel less alone in the world, and that is inherently valuable.
And how do you balance that as someone that is, showing up online and giving value
Hmm.
in what you're giving out there, but like kind of dancing with this line and also like selling a product, right? Like you have, whether it's the coaching or your celebrity energy program, right? Like you have a product that people can buy from you. So it's
Hmm.
not, I feel like on one hand, like if you're on, like we're all influencers in a way, and then we're
Hmm.
not, right? If like an influencer is defined I get this a lot of time because people will, my mommy and me group just now, right? They all found me on social media and they were like, you're an influencer. And I'm like, I don't consider myself an influencer
Mm-hmm.
because I am a business owner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't make the majority of my living off of brand endorsements, right?
Yeah.
It's through like commerce, so to speak, right? So so how do you balance that as a business owner yourself, the
Mm-hmm.
dance between like letting people into that vulnerability, letting them feel like they know you, and that with the fact that like, well, you do offer a product and have value to give.
Yeah. So I think it's always going to, like, and I'm a mindset coach. So obviously it's going to be my answer, but it's always going to start with the thought, which is that me showing up is valuable. So that, I think, just in general is going to lead you to taking more empowered decisions. Now, obviously, in doing that, that has been, and like I talk about this in my content all of the time. I've been scammed out of literally like hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to pay people to teach me how to like do better at social media or at marketing or at selling. And none of it freaking works and the only thing that has worked for me is tap into my magnetism and open my mouth. Right. And so I have learned a very expensive lesson that that actually is the best thing. And when you do that, you do kind of innately, when you believe enough in what you're saying and what you're selling, you will naturally kind of sell organically, right? Like if you believe that you have the cure for cancer and you're talking about it, then like it's naturally that energy is what's going to sell people. So I think just energetically believing that every time I show up it's insanely valuable. In terms of strategy though, I mean, you obviously can tell which posts lead to more follows, which posts lead to more traffic. And I think for me, especially this last year, because it's just been such a personal challenge, that has been what I've primarily relied on because I'm just like, I got to keep my head down. And sometimes things sharing about my own story has just been too raw for me to do. And so it's been, for me though, I think having an avenue, my podcast is the place that I am a lot more vulnerable, have been a lot more vulnerable. So, and of course, my podcast is always where people become paying clients, right? They find me on TikTok, they go to my podcast. That's where they like really are sold on me. Um, so I do think just having a space where I could do that. And now that I have a little bit of breathing room, that is something that I'm trying to do a little bit more. And I think also even just thinking about like your viral content, I like to think about social media. Remember that if someone is going to social media, they're picking that over Netflix. So what they want is a story. They want a character. They want someone to root for. So if they get on and like every post is viral, but it's saying the same thing, that's not interesting. Like you can watch like two of them. So I really do not chase views at all. I will post. I mean, I obviously at this point know, oh, if I start a post like this, it's going to get a lot of views, but I'm not intentional about how the balance that I do. But I do know that the lower view videos, if it's me talking about being raised Mormon, if it's talking about becoming a single mom, if it's talking about a hair product that I like, if it's talking about something completely random, those are the videos that actually convert people to me. So that's when, like, even though they don't get a lot of views, if someone goes to my page and they're watching the Whitney Uland channel, that's where they fall in love with me. And so I have been trying, and again, I brought on a new team member to help support with that, literally starting tomorrow, because I do see the value in it. And I'm just like, I need more support doing this because I've been the only one doing all of my social media up until now. And that's the main thing though that I want to prioritize is just bringing myself to it more and making that more of the priority. Um, but
And
I think,
I think that's so important what you said, because I think I see a lot of people are really like just hungry for the views or the follows and stuff like that. And I agree with you completely that sometimes the posts that may not do as well, it's connecting you with your core audience, right? And
exactly.
those are the people, I think there can be this fear of like, do people care, right? Do people care about this thing about my personal life? Or, people just care about this, right? But what you find is like, I mean, I've had my blog and my thing for like now 12 years, right? And so the people that like cared at the beginning and cared about all the stuff that was going on with my brother when I was like sharing about that when I was ready to, and like different like relationships and all the things that was going on, right? That were maybe just like little like speckling flicks in between my other content, right?
Mhm.
Those are the people that are still with me,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Even if those people maybe like aren't always like into whatever the thing that I might, the whatever program I might be selling or whatever it is, right? Like they're more of the ride or dies, and those people matter the most.
100%. And like, I think it's also, it comes back to when you just believe that there's an abundance of money and abundance of people. It's like, and also I think we have to like, again, if we're thinking about like your page, like a channel, people don't mind when you're watching a channel, they expect there to be like when you're watching television, they expect there to be ads, right? So just because people are confused that a business owner wants to have ad revenue, like fuck off. Like that's literally part of what it is. And I think that we have to just like if that's something that someone wants to do, and I'm passionate about this because this is what I want to do, right? Is I think just making peace with that, but also to your point, people want to follow those stories, and they like that's what connects us to people, are stories. And so if there are parts like of yourself that you feel vulnerable about sharing, you're not positive that you want to bring to the table, those are usually the things that are going to connect people the most to you. So like right now, people hire me because they want help with celebrity energy, but they're also like wanting to hear about my love life because they want to find out how it ends, right? So
Yeah.
and like then they're going to be so excited when they see me and my new partner and like our family growing or whatever it is.
Yeah, we can't help it. It's like human nature, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Who would you say right now, let's say one person in the like traditional acting space and one person in the more like online space, do you think is like really doing it like an excellent job right now at it?
I think the best person in Hollywood is Renee Rapp. She is, if you know her, she was just in Mean Girls. She also has a music tour, and she has leveraged social media to her advantage in such smart ways. And she leverages all of it. So she does the brand deals, she does traditional press, she would make her own social media posts. She also would be on red carpets. Like she just knows, and she knows how to get attention. I think that's why she had such a big moment at the beginning of this year, is because she just, and it kind of seems like, and it's very common, and I think a necessary thing um for artists specifically, is to then have times where they're on and then off again. That's why Taylor Swift will be really in the zeitgeist, and then you're gonna know, I feel like everyone's gonna notice she's gonna pull back this year, and I think that's specifically is so she doesn't have to talk about the election. But that's my hypothesis around her. But I think Renee Rapp is a great example. And then as far as the internet goes, I mean, I mentioned Emma Chamberlain. I think she's kind of at the top of her game right now in terms of doing it. Um,
And
I personally,
Emma's an interesting one to talk about too, um, because she's kind of like transitioned, like you mentioned,
exactly.
right? So that's like another art. And do you feel like that's something that she has like personally just artfully done? Or do you think that's something that's available to you once you kind of build, when you build on that real essence of who you are, it's like, oh, well, I don't care if Whitney is telling us about celebrity energy or Whitney is going to be telling us about the next TV series she just wrote and produced, right?
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
I'm here for the Whitney story, or do you think she kind of like very strategically did it?
I mean, obviously, without knowing her, of course, there are going to be, the bigger you go, gatekeepers just start coming into your life and saying, have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing this? My guess, because I have not heard those conversations with her specifically, but I have seen the conversations behind some of the most successful people in Hollywood, is that they are doing it themselves and they are being very strategic. So what I would see is like for example, do you remember when Beyonce launched? I think Ivy Park was her clothing. I think it was that one.
Yeah.
It could have been another one. Completely flopped. My guess is that that was when a gatekeeper said, "Hey, we have an opportunity. Do you want to do this?" Versus, I believe I might be messing this up totally, but I'm pretty sure she started a new line with more of the Texas kind of like Cowboy Carter
Yep.
era, which is so much more her, which I would assume she had more of a handle on. But regardless, whether or not she did or that was just an opportunity presented, I would guess that the people who are doing it the best, And I also say this just because I do get a behind the scenes peek at people's brains who are at the top of their celebrity game, is that they are multi-passionate, multi-hyphenate people who have a lot of ideas, and they know how, like, the fame is a craft. It is literally just being able to alter public opinion and to leverage one resource that you have into the next one. So, and the people that I see at the top of their game, they really just believe that they have the power to do that, and they get the creative ideas, and then they kind of go after it. And then, they'll bring the people along with them, but it's usually them being led, not like a team handing them opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense just energetically too. It's like when you're
Exactly.
energetically on board with something, especially if what's driving the machine, so to speak, is your own energy and your own magnetism, that if you're not really lit up and excited about something, it doesn't matter how much they're paying you. It's not really gonna make it work, right?
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, again, I think especially with the old Hollywood machine, it really just seemed like people lucked into fame and into success. And that's just a narrative that I just think is tired. And I don't think it serves anyone to think that things are just, and of course, people have privilege, people have opportunities or whatever. But for me to think, oh, the people at the top of their game just got there by luck, that's not helpful for me. Right. And what I will say is that the names that I have seen, they are literally like Navy SEALs of their mindset. And they literally just have such a rock solid foundation and belief in themselves. And they set boundaries really well, and they're willing, and they are ready to be called on their bullshit, and they want me to call them out on things. And also they come to me. This is something that I've seen as fascinating. People who are just getting started, if you ask like why isn't it working, they're going to blame everything and everyone else, right? They're going to say the circumstances that are not. If you ask someone at the top of their game why they're stuck, they're going to say, I'm in my way, like 100% of the time. And they're going to say, I'm blocking myself because I'm doing X, Y, and Z. And this is where I need help getting out of this mindset problem.
I love that. Oh my God. It makes me so happy because one of the like troll comments I got from my YouTube channel, and I have tapping videos on my YouTube channel. I'm a big like EFT
Oh, I
person.
love that.
And so, but I start every tapping video, like, for instance, like, one of the scripts will be like, the only reason I'm not X, Y, and Z, fill in whatever you're manifesting, like, I'm not a millionaire, I'm not famous, whatever it is because I must be blocking myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, and that's the good news, because if I'm blocking
Yep.
myself, then I can
I can
unblock
unblock it.
myself, right?
Yeah.
And I get, so every once in a while I'll get a troll that'll be like, I feel like it's a really negative way to start the video by saying that you're the problem. And I'm like, don't you understand? That's the
It's
most
such good news.
empowering like
Yes,
way to start. If anything else is the problem, you don't have control. But if you're the
exactly.
problem, it is great news.
It's great news. And that's the thing, is it's like we have to look at some point, what's the benefit? Literally, there is no upside to me thinking that it's in someone else's control, because there's nothing I can do about it. But if I believe I'm 100% in charge of every single result, then at least I can I'm going to be like push forward into positive action.
Absolutely. Yeah, proactive.
Yeah.
Okay, I have two selfish questions for you
Ask
to
me.
end with.
I can't wait.
Okay, so my first one is, as a new mom, you being now a slightly more seasoned mom of a 2-year-old, still, I'm sure it still feels really new. Um, how does how to being a mom, at least in my short span of doing it, right, can feel like really all consuming,
Mhm.
right? And you feel like a lot. How do you balance, like, how do you keep your celebrity energy up with like juggling all of the tasks that momming, comes with?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, obviously, the caveat to this is a 2-year-old is at a different space. So, like, don't use any of this against yourself, right? Um, I had such a solid belief that what is best for me is what's best for my child. And I know that to be true. And it has allowed me, I assumed that that would lead me to take selfish actions, but what it has actually done is it has cut space for any and all bullshit. And because what I found is that what actually gets you bogged down is the guilt and the shame and the I should, right? And you're in such a, I mean, again, you have a newborn. So you're kind of like in between. Like I even felt like I was literally in between this world and the beyond world, like because our bodies are portals. And I just was like, you are just kind of in a different space. And that does, like, I do feel like you kind of come back to earth. So just being like patient with yourself. But I really like, I had a insanely transformative birth experience. I had a last minute home birth, and I transcended myself in such beautiful ways. And for me, birth just taught me that it was like my intuition is right and my mama bear energy is correct. And I felt like when I became a mom, what was right for me lit me up, and what was wrong for me feels radioactive. And it feels like there is nothing in between. And so really just betting on that and trusting that. And it's so hard, but just I think that your intuition gets a lot stronger when my intuition got a lot stronger after having a child. And the more that I've rooted into that, the more successful I've become.
Oh my God. I love that. I also had a home birth. That
Oh,
was,
amazing.
yeah, that was like very empowering as well. And I definitely agree with that. That's a great way to honor that. Cause I know that obviously myself being new, but I work with a lot of women that are moms and they're building their business and maybe their kids are a little older. And it's always this balance, right? Of how, how do I make sure I show up for them versus give myself the time I need for my creative endeavors. Obviously when they're older, like right now, I'm just like pretty much like a milk machine right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So not me in that case yet, but I know that as moms, it's a thing that oftentimes like society kind of again like can push that stereotype of that like now you have to be like reasonable, and now
Mhm.
be like manage your expectations, right? And I really even before I was a mom, like always wanted to call bullshit on that,
Yes. Yes.
right? Because
Same.
it's absolutely not. And what do our kids need more than seeing us shine, right?
Yes. Yes, exactly. And I just think, again, like to that idea that like what's best for me is going to be best for my kid has really, I mean, ultimately, listen, like, unfortunately, that just that in and of itself led to the end of my marriage, which is never something that I wanted. But it was not the marriage was not supportive of me or of my child, and it had to go. And I think all of these things that like even putting my child in daycare, there's such the propensity of like, no, I should be home with him. I should do all these things. And now just being like, what's best for me is what's best for him. And now he's only 2 and I see the benefits of him being surrounded by kids, and I see his confidence and I see his ability. He's trilingual. Like, are you kidding me? Like he's so good at communicating. Like he just has this confidence and ability to communicate that I have not seen from children his age who are just home with their kids. And not that that's, the go-to, that's the best thing for my child, because that's the best thing for me. So I think just however that manifests, just prioritizing yourself in spite of feeling selfish doing
I
so.
love that. I love that. It also reminds me just that I feel like our children chose us,
Yes.
like they chose us and they kind of knew what they were getting into, right?
Yes.
They saw us down here doing our thing. And so I feel like, whether you're, whether whatever kind of mom you have or whatever kind of mom you are, right? There was like a soul contract there. And
Oh,
so like
100%.
leaning into that. And I think that's what I've been trying to like sit in now too, is like, okay, well, like I think so many people like, oh, you're going to change so much as a mom. And then yes, in ways, I think you do change a lot. It's very transformative. And also like, I didn't become a stay-at-home mom
Mm-hmm.
like over, I didn't have that desire, that desire
Yeah.
didn't just come because I birthed a child,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm still very much who I was with my ambitions and my creative desires and all the like things that were stirring in me afterwards. And like that get to be okay.
100%. And I feel like, especially being raised Mormon, everyone told me, oh, once you have the kid, then you're gonna change. And I was so afraid of motherhood because of that, because I was afraid of another identity loss. And it just wasn't true for me. It just made me more of myself. It made me, again, just less time for bullshit and more of just like, this is what's important. And so this is what I'm going all in on.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, my last very selfish question. This one's a little bit more vulnerable. So I am also, I didn't want to take up time in your interview because everybody that listens already knows my story, but we have very similar stories. And I was an actress for the longest time. And I actually built my business while acting just because I wanted a creative endeavor. And similarly, it got so big unexpectedly, really, that it just took up all my time.
Mhm.
And, like I wrote 3 books, I did a bunch of stuff for this, and it just recently, a couple years ago, my grandma passed away, who was kind
Sorry.
of like my mother,
Mhm.
energy. And her passing just kind of shook me
Mhm.
and made me realize how much I missed acting and missed the creativity of it and missed this. I've built such a business just on me, right? And I missed being able to like play in a
Yeah.
character, right? Become someone else, get lost in a storyline, just flex those creative muscles. Even like, like writing a screenplay versus writing, all my books are like self-help books, right?
Uh-huh.
Like I miss that different kind of energy of creativity. And so now, as I'm like kind of approaching this new chapter after motherhood, I have an agent and a manager and started auditioning and stuff like that. But it also came like very inconveniently when I got pregnant.
Of course.
So I was like, okay, but like, so that train is kind of going. But so I'm curious what your advice would be on navigating that as far as like presenting myself publicly, right? When I feel like I have built a certain following off of my manifestation and my meditation and all of this stuff that has a lot of momentum, which is what people follow me for. But when I really feel like this like large new evolution, it's coming. But yeah, I don't have enough kind of like quote unquote clout in that area. But that feels more true to where I'm at right now, if that makes any sense.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. So here are my thoughts is that for one, everyone who is at the top of their game feels like they are afraid to add in a new thing because they feel it's like this, I'm starting over and whatever, right? And the same thing is true of like an influencer who has always been known for one thing and they want to add in a new part of their personality, right? So I think like first off, that's just part of the process. I also think it's a lot more vulnerable to when you are known for something to add in something new where you feel like you're starting over and you feel like you're at the beginning. But what I want to offer is that you and who you are and what you've created, that translates and that gets to come with you as an actor. So I would like, I mean, from a strategy perspective, I'm like, oh my God, like take people on the journey of you manifesting your next role. Like that's the easiest solution, right? And can you work on feeling safe being seen doing that? And that's where the hard thing is, because it's like you probably have created a good amount of safety talking about your business and talking about manifestation and talking about, spirituality and all of that. And so then to add in this new level, it's going to trigger that fear of being seen because it's like there's such a disparity between your identity there. So, and the only way to grow it is going to be by talking about it. So I personally am such a believer in bringing that to your content. Like I don't know if this is something for, I feel like the secret hack of manifesting is start talking about it online because it's like that
Yeah.
then you literally practice sitting in the like if you can be confident enough to talk about it, then you're literally manifesting. Like you're living in the energy, you're living in that and embodying it. So I say you got to bring that to your content and like take people on your journey with you.
Ooh, okay, okay. Yeah, it does. It feels so vulnerable, but you're absolutely right. It's like it is, it's the catch 22 of having that established thing, right? Is
Mhm.
that when I started it, it was really vulnerable, right?
Right.
Because I was no one talking about like all this stuff. Who am I? Right. And then now it doesn't feel that vulnerable anymore. It feels really
Right.
easy. So it keeps it, yeah, it keeps it spicy. All right. Challenge
Yeah.
accepted. We'll
Yeah, well,
listen.
listen, it's new devils, new levels, new devils. So
New levels, new devils.
it's gonna feel vulnerable again. But I also think because you've done it in this one area, like even just the thought like this can be easier this time, or like I have the self-concept, like, maybe it took you 3 of the first 12 years to feel comfortable, and now it's gonna take you 3 months or whatever
Yes.
to get to the place that you're like, I'm talking about this, this is what's happening. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
how fun.
I love it. Okay. So Whitney, how can people work with you? How can they get some of your amazing advice and energy?
Yeah, so I'm on social media at Whitney Uland. My podcast is How to Be Famous with Whitney Uland, and then my website is howtobefamous.org. I work with clients one-on-one as well as in group settings, and I have digital courses as well. The best way to find those is just probably going to be on social media, at like the link in my bio there, kind of all listed out.
Awesome. Well, we'll include all of the links below so you guys can find Whitney and get in touch with all of her good stuff. She has an awesome podcast. And yeah, thank you so much, Whitney, for all of your time and for being on the podcast. It's just been a total blessing and a total blast to be my first podcast back.
Oh, well, thank you. I had so much fun and I'm just honored to be here. So thank you.